Bitch, I told your ass I don't know what to say. Every time you press me, bitch, I told you, don't know what to say. Calling me on some dumb shit, bitch, I told you, don't know what to say.
The most painful cave deaths of all time. Ugh, I'm scared.
Sterkfontein Cave Incident. It was September 29th, 1984.
What the fuck? That's
cave
how you do
explorer
me.
named
Okay, you're a
Nuno
liar.
Gomez was exploring
You're a liar.
unmapped sections.
Lily, I'm actually quite nice to you. Lily, you like to hate on me, actually. If we're being honest, maybe I may have accidentally, maybe like 3 or 4 times, ended stream right before you got here. And maybe I lied about a few things. It's all out of love from a real nigga because you a real nigga,
Of the Sterkfontein Cave in South Africa. He was accompanied by his 2 friends, Peter
Trey reads our
Verhulsel and
text with the
Malcolm,
most
and together they
nonchalant
planned to
tone.
lay a guideline
I
from
sure
the
do.
entrance to the farthest point of the wet cave area known as Milner Hall. The plan was for
Bro, this looks fucking crazy. Like, how is a piece of rock just floating? How is it just floating right there?
Nuno to go in and place the guideline, while Peter and Malcolm waited outside, assisting him from the surface. Nuno plunged into the water and successfully laid the line, covering a distance of 396 feet from the entrance to the end. Happy because of the success, the 3 decided to go back in and follow the new guideline. Once they reached the air pocket at the end, they were satisfied that they had successfully mapped this cave section, so they turned around and began to head out, following the line. As Nuno led the group, he suddenly felt Malcolm touch him. Malcolm was signaling that Peter was no longer behind them. Nuno went back to see where Peter had gone and noticed that he had entered a side tunnel. Nuno tapped Peter to get his attention and signaled him to return to the guideline and exit the cave. As they headed back, however, Peter disappeared again. This time, Nuno and Malcolm assumed he had taken the other exit, avoiding the tight squeeze they themselves used, so they did not go back to look for him. When Nuno and Malcolm surfaced and realized Peter was not there and still hadn't come out after a while, they submerged once more to look for him. They searched
I'm not gonna lie, man. If we did AOB caving, first of all, would never do that. If we did AOB caving, and one of y'all dumbass niggas, cause I'm small as shit. I know if we went caving, I'm definitely gonna probably be most likely to get out that bitch alive. Followed by Kai. And then, I'm not gonna lie, Mark, Manny, and Kay, y'all 3 niggas are fucked.
along the guideline and even in the side tunnels, but there was no sign of him.
If any of y'all niggas got stuck, I'm sorry, but I'm leaving you there. JJ's. JJ's. Sorry, but you gotta, I mean, I'm not gonna go down there and possibly have to suffer for the consequences of your actions, nigga. I swear to God.
For 4 long hours, they ran out of air tanks, and the stirred up silt.
Because me being W-mans, me saving you is me telling you, yo, bro, we shouldn't do this at the very start. That's my W-mans moment right there.
Reduced visibility to almost
oh, God.
nothing. Finally,
oh, God,
late
okay,
that afternoon,
hey,
they
look,
exited the
if
cave.
I happen to get stuck, I wouldn't be mad at y'all, man. I wouldn't be mad if y'all just left me there, because, on God, that's my bullshit. That's my bullshit I'm dealing with. I wouldn't want y'all to suffer for the consequences of my bullshit.
And called for help. The fire brigade arrived, but lacking cave diving expertise, had to wait for the police divers to continue the search in the evening. What no one realized was that Peter was not dead at all. He had been sidetracked by a secondary tunnel, and the cave's complex 3D structure, combined with the lack of a guideline, the stirred up silt, and the darkness, made it nearly impossible for him to orient himself. After trying many—
Nigga, a cave? Do you know how dark caves get, bro? No light? Okay, I'm not gonna lie, Peter might just be a dumb fuck.
Possible paths, Peter found a small room and decided to wait there for rescuers. He shone his light into the water in hopes of signaling his friends, but when no one came for a long time, he switched it off to conserve the little battery life remaining. He tried making noise by banging his tank on the rocks, but to no avail. Eventually, he became exhausted, fell asleep, and lost track of time. After that first night of searching, the police closed off the cave so no one else could enter. Unfortunately, the silt took a long time to settle, so visibility remained poor. Convinced Peter had not survived, the police decided to wait a full week before resuming the search. On October 6th,
that nigga not dead though!
7 days after Peter's disappearance, they returned but found no sign of him. Another week passed before they tried again, but he was nowhere to be seen. Meanwhile, Peter was still alive. He had spent 14 days in complete darkness, starving and having lost much—
Oh my God, that nigga was probably in there losing his fucking mind! Oh my God, poor, no. One guy, like, bro, God forbid, right? God forbid. If I'm ever in a situation like this, bro, I hope I have like a little piece on me so I can just, you know what I'm saying, make it merciful. You know what I'm saying? So I can just, you know what I'm saying, make this shit quick and painless, nigga. This is crazy. Utter straight darkness, no food, and I hope that's fresh water, so he could have at least stayed hydrated.
Much of his weight. Hoping for a way out, he decided to follow a passage leading from the small room where he had sheltered. After traveling 120 feet away from the water, he discovered it was only a dead end, so he returned to his spot near the water to wait one.
Nigga like me, bro, I'm gonna have to get to digging, bro. If it's with my bare hands, I don't, you know what I'm saying? I guess, like.
Once more for rescue.
I'm gonna get to
the
digging.
police continued weekend searches for 6 weeks, but they never found him and
Start
finally
punching at the
called
rock
off the
and
search
shit.
with no result. At that point, they reopened the dry sections of the cave, but kept the water section closed. Volunteers then began looking for a connection between the dry and wet cave systems, and Nuno joined them. His contributions were crucial. He was the one who discovered the connection where they could enter the wet section of the cave. It was there that they found a set of footprints leading to a dead end, and soon after, Peter's body. Beside his body was a message that read, "I love you, Cheryl and Ma." It was later discovered.
That's sad as fuck. I ain't even gonna lie. That's actually kind of sad, bro. Moment for my nigga Peter, man. That's actually kind of sad as fuck, bro. You know what I'm saying? Shit like that. You know?
March 27th, 1982.
I probably just drowned
Donald
myself. Drowning is a terrible way to go. That's a painful way to go.
Along with his 2 sons, Christopher and Roger, were about to leave
Crooked Swamp incident. You lost me at Crooked Swamp.
a group of 12 Boy Scouts on a day of
More
cave
like hopeless,
exploration.
you know?
This wasn't
Well,
Donald's
yeah,
first
you
time
know.
caving, and even though the passages
wanna
in the
starve.
Crooked Swamp cave system were notoriously narrow, he wasn't too concerned. Donald was bigger than the other participants, so if he could get through, the rest of the group could too. At 2 o'clock, they entered the cave through its 16 by 28 inch.
Okay, I see a bunch of little Boy Scouts. I'm really praying that none of these little niggas get fucked up in the story.
Donald was on the
Oh,
eastern
so
side
it
and
is.
noticed several smaller tunnels leading from the room. However, because they weren't sure which passages would be too narrow, Donald decided to check one. It involved a tight squeeze but appeared to open to another section, so he tried to push through. The squeeze measured 18 by 20 inches, so tight that he couldn't move his arms backward or lift his
No.
head to see ahead. He was followed by his sons, and while moving forward thanks to the
Trey, you
mud
got
making
that?
the terrain slippery, he reported back to them what was happening. Everything seemed normal until something unexpected occurred. As he pulled himself along, he realized the ground below him was disappearing. Donald slipped down into a tight crevice, and the slick mud prevented him from stopping his slide. His hands were trapped, leaving him no leverage to pull himself up. Making matters worse, the path angled about 30 degrees, so he had to fight against gravity. The crevice was just 5 inches wide, and the slippery mud caused his body to settle more and more. He told his sons to pull on his feet, but after several failed attempts, he told them to get the other adult in the cave, Jim. After a while, Jim also realized they wouldn't be able to free Donald on their own. Donald explained that some rocks had loosened when he slid and were now wedging against his body. Each time they tried to pull him backward, the loose rocks would slide forward and block the passage. Jim exited the cave to call for help. Cave rescue specialists and the police arrived, and because only one person could squeeze into that narrow space at a time, they tried using ropes to free Donald. This didn't work either, so they brought in tools to try breaking some of the rocks. However, given how tight the space was, hours of work led to only small breakthroughs, and Donald's situation grew worse. They decided to dig from above ground, down to where Donald was stuck. The process lasted all day Sunday, getting them close to the required depth. Unfortunately, though, they were about 12 feet away from Donald's position, so they needed to dig laterally. Meanwhile, Donald began giving only grunting responses, which indicated he was likely suffering from hypothermia. On Monday morning, as 2 days passed from when he got stuck, the digging continued, but the team encountered another problem: extremely hard bedrock layers that were impossible to dig through. At this point,
like, okay. At some point, you gotta just think, you gotta be like, okay, maybe God is really trying to fight it. Like, maybe the universe is really fighting against me right now. Maybe I have to come to peace. Think about what you've done, you know? Is this my karma for something? Like, what are the, like, oh God, what are the chances? Like, everything is working against you.
Donald was still alive. Seeing how quickly Donald's condition was deteriorating, rescuers started using their most extreme tools, including dynamite, which was extremely risky, but appeared to be the only option left. On Tuesday morning, they finally managed to reach his location, and a doctor was sent in immediately, but as many feared, Donald had died. It took an entire day to retrieve his body, and an autopsy later confirmed he had succumbed to hypothermia sometime between Sunday night and Monday morning. Following his death, the cave system was restricted to limited access. Agent Allwed incident. Roger Solari
Damn.
and Martin Farr, aged 26 and 23 respectively, wanted to map out the Aegean Allwed cave system in South Wales. At the time, John Parker, another explorer, had abandoned the mission after discovering a third sump in one of its longest passages. Martin and Roger, however, wanted to keep going to see what lay beyond. The first trip was done by Martin alone, because Roger had hurt his knee, making it extremely dangerous for Martin to continue solo. Reaching the third sump was a feat in itself, since the route was not only tortuous, but also extremely long, lasting for hours, as the first sump was about a mile into the cave. The first two sumps measured only 240
We're trying to figure out why niggas cave.
longer, and nobody had fully explored it yet, so
Honestly,
Martin could only hope
haven't
he had
gotten it
enough
at all.
air to reach the end. Fortunately, he managed to swim through it, about
I couldn't,
850 feet. Enough air
I think I'd rather surf with sharks than do this shit.
to explore it, and then return. He spent the
I'll
next
punch a shark in the fucking nose. What the fuck am I gonna do here? Rub my gooch against the cave floor? Like, what the fuck?
5 hours heading
Bro,
back
go on,
out,
bro.
planning to wait for Roger
I'd rather
so they could
skydive.
tackle
Oh, God.
Sump
What's
4
up,
together
Sinister?
on the
What's
next
up,
trip.
man?
When they returned on June 15th,
I'd also
1974,
rather
both
skydive.
Roger and Martin brought extra air tanks. They successfully
want to
reached Sump
skydive.
4 and began diving it with a guideline to help map the route. After about 400 feet, Roger finished his guideline, and he had sinus problems, even though it wasn't the first time. Despite this, they decided to continue. Martin then took out his own guideline and they kept going, but they made an important mistake. In cave diving, there is a concept called the rule of thirds for air consumption. If you use 1/3 of your air supply on the way in, you need another third to get out, leaving the final third as an emergency reserve. They had already used their first third and should have turned back when Roger's line ran out. Because Roger had a smaller tank than Martin, Martin assumed
that
Roger
nigga
would
put
head
it
out
again.
while he continued forward. He eventually came to a gravel wall of rock, which could have indicated the sump was ending, and possibly an air pocket. By this point, he was well past the halfway mark of his tank, so it was becoming extremely risky. He pushed on until he reached
I'd rather
solid
bungee
rock.
jump. I feel like bungee jumping is pretty. I feel like it's pretty like. I feel like it's pretty light. I feel like it's light, like for thrill seeking.
Confirming there was no air pocket. Spotting a passage to the
Like,
right.
what else are what are some other thrill seeking activities? Hold on. Let's see. I feel okay. Bungee jumping, rafting, escape rooms. Okay, escape rooms is just like for niggas who like puzzles. Rafting, rafting is pretty lit. I've gone rafting, I've done that. Rock climbing is lit, I've done that. Ice climbing is crazy. Yo, okay, that's also a crazy one. Niggas who like really climb mountains. Like, I'm not talking about like rock climbing or like, you know what I'm saying? Like the niggas who like have tried to climb Mount Everest and shit like that. You know, like shit like that is ridiculous. What the fuck is cage diving? Cage diving is a unique and exhilarating snorkeling or scuba experience that will have your heart racing. It involves getting up close and personal with some cage diving. Oh, nigga. Oh, I'm so fucked up. I'm thinking about niggas diving out of the sky.
Finally emerging from Sump 4, Martin sat on the bank, waiting for Roger, who, remember, had a smaller tank. If he didn't appear soon, it would be a huge problem. After 20 minutes with no sign of Roger, Martin realized that if Roger had surfaced from Sump 4 at that moment, he likely wouldn't have enough air left to get through Sump 3. After an hour, Martin was certain Roger's air had run out. Martin entered the water again. He tried pulling the guideline to make it tense, but it didn't. It was no longer connected.
Med school and shit, nursing. Yo, that's fire! Yo, congratulations! That's some big shit, Rocky. That's some big shit.
Strawhat_Wick says that's climbing boulders, not mountains, so you are wrong.
Bouldering is rock climbing stripped down to its raw essentials, leaving behind ropes and harnesses, just using climbing shoes and a bag of chalk over safety mats. Fuck are we talking about? Shut the fuck up, Wicks.
It had been cut at about the 430-foot mark. This was probably where Roger needed to change tanks. Because switching them wasn't a simple task at the time. He might have put his arm through the line to avoid losing it, twisted his body to reach the valve, and become tangled, forcing him to cut the line to move free. This, combined with the silt picked up by movement, likely reduced his visibility.
New citizenship? Oh shit, nigga, that's hard.
He may have swum the wrong way. At that point, there was no doubt Roger had exhausted his air. Martin stayed calm and managed to navigate the next 3 sumps safely. He alerted the authorities immediately, and the search for Roger...
I think scuba diving is already pretty dangerous because of, you know, a lot of shit can go wrong with, you know, the pressure in your tank and then the pressure of wherever you're at, especially if you're doing, like, deep diving and shit like that, you know what I'm saying? I feel like it gets like, you have to ascend from, like, deep diving, like, really slowly, so you don't get, what's it called? I forgot what it's called, like, nitrous poisoning or some shit like that. you're gonna get fucked up. Like, yeah.
Roger's body began. Martin himself joined the search, along with many others.
Yeah, you gotta let that motherfucker decompress on God.
However, Roger's remains were
Nightmare
not
on God.
found until 1986, 12 years later. Recovering the
Nigga, they did this?
However, Roger's remains were not found until 1986,
12 years later. So, nigga, this shit happened when? 1974? Nigga! The technology in scuba tanks wasn't even that good at that point!
Recovering the body was deemed
I think he
too
would have
risky,
died at old
so
age
it was
by this
left in the
point.
cave, and a
Nigga,
plaque
old
was
as
placed
shit.
near the entrance of Sump 1 in Roger's honor. In 1987, another explorer passed through Sump 4 and finally located the air pocket, 875 feet in, the very one Roger and Martin had hoped to find. It was called the Against All Odds Chamber. Martin stated that after this incident, he never broke the rule of thirds again. He went on to have a remarkable diving career.
Yeah, I
Today,
bet.
the entrance to the cave system is locked, and only specific, experienced divers are granted a key. Floyd Collins incident. Sand cave, which was
Okay, some of these deaths are making a little bit more sense because of a lot of this shit is happening, 100 years ago.
easily accessible to tourists before
Nigga,
Floyd
1924 was dead at wait. Nigga, dead ass 100 years ago. Holy shit.
he immediately began working there. Since there was
Profits.
no significant entrance, however, many tourists avoided it. As a result, Floyd spent hours every day over the next few weeks digging deeper and deeper. On January 30th, 1925, it was snowing outside.
Nigga
and
made the cave?
once again, it's the turnaround room, called that way because many cavers would stop there and turn around, deeming it too risky to continue. The only way to go farther was through a tiny, narrow hole called the Squeeze, which measured only 9 inches
The squeeze, bitch.
in height. Floyd, however, managed to
squeeze?
push through. Beyond the squeeze, he saw a narrow pit dropping about 10 feet. He went down feet first and reached the bottom, where he found yet another pit. Squatting down, he removed the remaining rocks and debris and finally saw an opening into the main cave. He tied a rope in place and descended an 80-foot drop. Reaching the cavern floor, he was amazed by the sight, but noticed his light was starting to dim. Wanting to avoid being left in the dark, he climbed back up the 80-foot drop and began returning, moving backwards and pushing his lantern with his shoulder. Unfortunately, his lantern slipped into a tiny hole and shattered, leaving him in total darkness. Because the cavern was extremely unstable, Floyd knew he had to move carefully to avoid dislodging loose rocks. Unable to see, however, he kicked one loose, and it fell onto his left leg, trapping him. He tried freeing himself with his right leg, but the more he moved, the more rocks tumbled down, further wedging him in place. It was 10 a.m., and he began shouting for help. By 9
GG's, man. GG's, man. Like if I'm gonna do any thrill seeking, bro, it's gotta be in an open space. Cause this shit, I'm not claustrophobic. I'm actually very cozy in tight spaces, But no.
9 a.m. the next morning, nearly 24
I
hours after
hyperventilate.
he had
Oh
become
god,
trapped,
and that's
two of
one
the
of the
cave's
one of the worst things that you can do.
owners arrived with their
I am really?
17-year-old son, Jewel Estes, to check on him. They saw Floyd's coat hanging outside the cave and called his name, but no one answered, so they ventured deeper. Before long, the two owners turned
Yo! Them niggas leaned their heads in the cave and said, yo!
back because the passages were too
Yeah?
deep, but Jewel continued and eventually found Floyd, who asked him to call his brothers for help. Soon, Marshall Collins, Floyd's brother, and Lee Collins, Floyd's father, reached the entrance, finding a growing crowd
Damn.
watching the rescue attempt to widen the passage,
I already
digging
feel nervous
carefully
getting
so as
stuck
not
under
to
my
send
bed.
loose rocks tumbling onto Floyd. At
Well,
previously asked
at
Homer
least you could move a bed, you could kind of push that motherfucker off you. You can't move earth.
come along that day, so
You can't just push the earth. Push the earth up off you and shit and squeeze out. Oh, my fault. Let me just. Alright, there we go.
he did reach Floyd, but a new problem emerged. The crowds outside
I'm
had
only
started
afraid of
multiple
heights from
bonfires.
sketchy
The
places
melting
like roller
ice funneled
coasters.
water into the cave, creating mud and sending freezing cold water down toward Floyd. After 8 hours with Floyd, his brothers had to rest. Upon
Oh, Day One-ish, you weren't here earlier. I wanted to tell you, I looked at your Instagram and almost threw up.
them listened. Reporters
Reds!
began arriving, hoping to interview Homer. Tired of the questions, he told them to see for themselves inside
What
the
is
cave.
that about
Confusion
talking?
and rumors spread. Some claimed Floyd was already dead or that the cave had collapsed entirely. Determined to prove otherwise, Marshall offered a $500,000 reward to anyone who saved his brother. As rumors spread more,
I would have looked on Zillow. And I would have looked on cars.com and really seen what I could really.
however, a reporter named Skeets entered the cave and installed a light bulb near Floyd. While removing rubble, Skeets exposed more of Floyd's legs, but still couldn't free him. His story and interview with Floyd were published, drawing even larger crowds. Hotels nearby were filled, and at least 1,000 people gathered around Sand Cave. All this activity further weakened the cave walls, putting it at risk of collapse, though nobody realized it at the time, as everyone
Nigga had 1,000 niggas pressing him into the floor.
was rooting for
Oh
Floyd.
my
At hour
God.
123,
They were up there rooting for the nigga and fucking him up. Yo, that is insane. Trey once said he was going to make me a painting. It's been a year. Did I?
entrance to the pit
That's
collapsed, blocking any access to Floyd and
GG's
cutting off
jumping
deliveries of food and water. By hour
Niggas just ruined it. Niggas ruined it. Niggas clout chasing and ruined it. Like,
144.
see y'all, niggas will clout chase you and fuck your life up. All right? Don't let nobody bite your story. All right?
By Friday, February 13th, the men had nearly reached him, and one worker reported hearing groaning about 10 feet away. However, at 1:30 a.m. on February 16th, a worker reached Floyd and found him already deceased. Initially, Floyd's body was left in the cave. After some time, though, his brother Homer arranged for its removal and gave him a proper burial. If you liked this video, subscribe for similar ones or join my Discord to suggest another.
That's fucked up, man. See that caving shit, bro? That caving shit, man, it get deep. I'm not. Hey, niggas, they better than me. Shit.
Bitch give a fuck about what he say. Claim that he body real, really he bitch made. Don't give a fuck, sippin' lean out a minute made.